Night with Camille. Tonight we have Stephanie Callaway. So earlier we had a great introduction of her, but I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about herself.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, we're super excited. Yeah, and let me tell you, we're talking about how to have the difficult conversations tonight. So we'll get to
bright
that.
and bubbly personality is here to talk about that.
Right, and make us cry.
So I am Stephanie Callaway. I'm a nurse practitioner that specializes in adult geriatrics. So this is age 18 to 118
Okay.
or more.
Do you have a lot of 118 age patients?
I sadly don't.
Oh.
But I do have quite a few 100 plus.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, it's very exciting, and they're a lot of fun too.
I'll bet they are.
Yes, they are.
Yes, we get funny as we get older, don't we? That's right. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay. And so my background, when I started as a nurse tech. This is something that's going to go around in the hospital and kind of help patients more directly and not a nurse entirely. And then I graduated in 2006 from Central Missouri State, and then immediately went right into the ICU in downtown Kansas City.
Okay.
And there I was exposed to everything like dialysis and heart patients that had open cabbages and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
But you're kind of with these people on the worst day of their lives, and so you get to kind of have that bond, and they appreciate you, and it is pretty wonderful, even though it's sad.
Right.
And then I transferred down here in 2008
Okay.
and worked at Plaza Medical Center, which is now, I think, Medical City, Fort Worth.
Okay.
And then in 2013, I switched to a cardiac ICU over at Harris downtown
Okay.
and stayed there until I graduated with my nurse practitioner in 2017.
Nice. Okay, so you were in the ICU for quite a while.
Yes.
That's a whole different. Well, every department or everything you've done
Yeah.
is so a different animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and we know you because you were my mom's
That's right.
doctor, and so you obviously did a very good job with her. And
Well, thank you.
Your position, I guess, when you are with someone with the worst time of their life, you want someone like you rather than at least someone that's a jerk. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's interesting, and I think that there needs to be more emphasis placed on the elderly. You know?
Absolutely, there does.
It feels like they're a throwaway society sometimes.
They are. And actually, a study recently said that in 2010, 4% of people are going to be 60 to 80 above.
Okay.
And in 2050, over 10% of people are going to be 80 plus.
Okay.
And so we really are growing in our elderly population. And it can be because of medical science. It can be because we're just living longer, et cetera. But there are going to be a lot more elderly. And there's a lot that comes with getting older.
Yeah, there does. More than we want to recognize and more than we want to realize. I think, and we talked about the mental health side of this with Danielle a week or so ago, and it's just so hard to watch somebody lose their independence and and even harder for them, I'm sure.
Right.
So,
right.
But I think it's critical that the way we speak to them the way we speak to and about them is critical, really.
It is,
because
yes.
you can make someone feel really badly really fast.
Yes, you can. And a lot of that is as we get older, we have a lot of losses that occur.
Right.
Not only are you losing your physical self, you can lose your mental capabilities, but also social and independence. People are having a harder time driving out downtown Fort Worth. I mean, things have changed so much since I got here in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
And so now people that are getting older, they're having a harder time navigating that.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of loss as we get older, and there really aren't that many resources out there for our elderly.
There really isn't. And I don't know, my mom would always say, the portals, every portal, if I heard one more portal, I was going to jump off a bridge, because it was like, I don't know how they would navigate that on their own.
Same.
You can't make appointments, you can't, this and that and the other. So I think that's, I just think that the attention needs to be placed on their care and their lives. So I'm glad that you're here, and we're going to go through it.
Okay.
So, so like I said, this is going to be dealing with difficult conversations.
Yes.
What is in a nutshell, kind of what does that mean to you?
Dealing with difficult conversations when it comes to elderly specifically, it means more having this one-on-one chat more than just once. A lot of people think you check off a box and you have this conversation. Now we know what mom and dad wants, or what grandma and grandpa wants, and we're done. We don't have to bring it up again. We all know it's in there. It's done. And it's really not. We all transition, or using that phrase instead of passing on or dying, using phrases like passing on or transitioning.
Okay.
It does kind of help soften
the load, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But having that conversation openly with family, important friends maybe, and letting a lot of people be aware this is what that individual wanted is imperative to making this an easier process.
Okay, if you know what that person wants.
Right,
But
right.
A lot of those persons don't want to tell you.
That's
you know?
right. You would be surprised. So actually this week, if you don't mind sharing a story.
Yeah, of course.
I had a 91-year-old lady.
Okay.
Very excited to be there. She got her physical, was not wanting me to do the full head to toe clothes off physical. And I said, that's fine. I understand.
Right.
And her daughter was sitting there and I said, can I just have a quick conversation with you about what you want the end of life process to look like? Because we're not all going to make it out of this world alive.
Right, that's true.
It's a guarantee.
Most of us won't, yeah.
And so I had said, what do you want that to look like? And she goes, oh, my daughter knows. And the daughter's going, well, we don't really talk about it.
Ah.
And so I said, well, why don't you share with me, just so I know? And she goes, okay, I'll share with you. And so she told me and walked me through the process of what she was wanting her end of life
Okay.
passing to look like. And she's doing great. Patient's talking to me about it. She goes, I really like this. I love my family. I want my friends close to me. I want my family around me. I want to hear laughter. I want to hear stories.
Oh.
And the daughter is crying.
Oh.
I said, do you guys not talk about this? And she goes, I never mind talking about it. They don't like talking about it. And so I find it's actually the kids and the family members, they don't want to bring it up.
Right.
Because they think it's sad.
Yeah.
But it is something that would benefit you to have these harder conversations.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a way to go about it, because I know you, like I said, you treated her and you were able to tell her things in a way that were very kind but very truthful.
Right.
You know, I think
Right.
with their memory, especially, she would say, "Sorry, there's a gnat or something here."
Visitor.
Yeah, a little visitor. I have a salt gun. I should have brought it, but anyway, I didn't. So, I lost track of it. Thanks for the crickets, which is like most of the day. She would say things and say, "Well, I don't know. I don't remember."
Right.
And you would remind her in a kind way that, well, of course you don't remember. You're dealing with these things, and
Right.
this and that and the other, because nobody wants to face it. And I found myself in the same shoes. She would not discuss it with me, So I tried all kinds of things. So hopefully tonight we'll share some things with others that they
Yeah.
can promote that conversation.
Yes,
So, 'cause,
yes.
I mean, it is unpleasant, but it is going to happen.
It is
to
going
each
to
one of
happen.
us.
And she
So-
might not want to share. People don't want to always share because they feel like they're sparing your feelings.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You're still her little girl or you're still her little
Right.
boy. And so they're sparing your feelings. But it is something that if you have, like, when you go to the physicals or doctor's appointments and you say, hey, let's just kind of touch base a little bit here on what you want that to look like.
Right.
And they can tell me, I don't want to. And that's
Right.
okay.
Sure.
I mean, we'll
But it
get you next
started.
year.
The conversation started. Right. Exactly. You got to come back at some point.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I think that's very common. I'm finding that people they're saying, I don't know, we've never talked about this.
Right.
We got to talk about this. Thank you for
Right.
reminding me. So, but that's still easier said than done, if depending on how crazy your family is. Mine is a little crazy. So,
Yeah. I kind of brought that up too about families, and we can transition right into families if you want.
no, I got off track. We can.
Okay.
You go wherever you were at.
So the other part is kind of understanding your role as a caregiver. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we want to go from being a child to being a parent real fast. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
like, I know what's best for mom. I know what's best for dad.
I don't know
I'm
anything
gonna
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of this.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Right.
And they still see you as the baby they held on the day you were delivered.
Yeah.
Going through school. So it's a very difficult dynamic to navigate. And it's not one that you really ever had to navigate before.
Right. Yeah.
And so the best way I can think about it is a young adult. So they have their independence, they have their cognition, they have their likes and dislikes, they know who they are, but now you have to navigate taking care of them. And it's difficult, but it can be also kind of enlightening a little bit. Because you didn't know maybe your loved one liked this or liked that. A really good example is I had a nice, she's a teacher, and she's a daddy's girl.
Okay.
I don't think I ever met the mom, but I knew the dad, and he was a patient of mine, as is she. And he was independent. In fact, when she got her hip replaced, he, being 86, decided he was going to take care of his little girl. Right?
Oh, that's sweet.
Very sweet. But then he had a decline. Our bodies aren't made to last for 100+ years. And so they start to decline, and he got sick, which did quicken this decline. And he wanted to be independent.
Yeah.
That was what he wanted. And so usually you would say, no, Dad, you have to come live with me. I'm going to take care of you. You're going to have your own room. You're going to have your own bed. I'm going to fix you 3 meals a day. We're going to go for walks. You're going to have a great time. And they're sitting there going, no, thank you.
Yeah, no, we're not.
That's
Yeah.
right. And so we had a lot of talks. We had a lot of these talks. And he did give a lot of pushback about not driving, living alone.
Okay.
And all in all, he did end up passing away in his own home. And as upsetting as that is, because we usually think the process of passing needs to be how we want it.
Right.
Surrounded by loved ones, maybe with your daughter in the room holding your hand. He wanted to be independent until the very end.
Yeah.
And he got that. So having that conversation,
Right.
open dialogue,
Yeah.
and understanding that, yes, you want to take care of him, but he's also your parent still.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is tough.
Because there's childlike activity or
Yes.
processes, but they're not a child.
Yes.
But it feels like that. It just feels like the roles reverse. You know?
Yes.
But they don't technically. You're still, what you were born into. So, yeah, I think that's the independence thing is so hard.
It is.
Mother would tell people, well, they don't let me drive anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Because you were having seizures. It wasn't safe for you to drive.
Right.
But because she couldn't remember, she would tell people, whatever, and then. But anyway, so as I digress. Okay, so yeah, that's an interesting. It's hard though to let them do that. It's hard if you're the caregiver.
It's got to be the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
To let somebody live the life that they want, knowing the end is going to be them no longer here.
Yeah.
Yes. And you want them to be comfortable and know that they're loved. Most of the time, they know they're loved.
Yeah.
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 They know. They understand that fully. They just think you'd love them more if you let them drive.
Right. Yes. If you'd let them do lots of things.
Yes.
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 Yeah. It was funny. She even started calling me mom. She was quite witty, and she's like, "Okay, mother. Thank you, mother."
Right.
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 I'm like, I'm not trying to be
And
your
that's
mother.
not really what you want. You don't
No.
want, the last few years of your mother's life looking where she's thinking you're a nag.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought, well, I learned
Yeah.
it from her. No, no.
Now she knows.
I'm just, now she knows. Yeah, that was, yeah.
But a lot of people, they have a hard time talking to their loved ones about driving because that's a big independence. We kind of talked about
huge.
that. Like,
Yeah.
as you get older, you're more in the loss of your physical aspect, your mental aspect, but also your independence and social. And driving is huge.
Yeah.
And having that conversation is hard because if I were to say, you can't drive anymore,
Right.
you would look at me and be like, the hell I
watch me.
can't.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Beep, beep.
Right.
It's actually a little bit more beneficial in my experience having them kind of say, what happens if you have another accident where you don't remember, or you have a seizure,
Okay.
or you get lost, or you get in traffic and you hit another vehicle and somebody else is injured in that vehicle.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, anybody hearing that goes, well, I don't want to be the cause of that.
Right.
And they kind of know, a lot of them already kind of know that something's not clicking.
Yeah. That's a good approach. So I like that. Rather
Yeah.
than tell them what they can and can't do, make it to where their only choice is to make that choice.
Right.
The safest choice for
And
them.
usually they will choose, oh my gosh, I don't want to hurt anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very few have chosen the opposite. And then we kind of find ways to help them not drive. Where I work, they actually have a physical therapy program to evaluate your ability to drive.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Yes.
cool.
So it's a virtual kind of reality that they put you in a vehicle and they examine your speed. I had some lady that she just went 15.
Yeah.
She passed.
Yeah.
She just went 15 miles per hour. So of course she passed.
Which is probably equally as dangerous, though.
Very dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
We didn't let her drive.
Good.
But they
I'm
do
afraid
have.
I'm not going to get in there when I come by because I'm afraid you won't let me drive. I'm just not that talented at it.
Yes. They monitor your reaction times, and it does help kind of show the person themselves, like, hey, this is what we're seeing.
Right.
This isn't just my opinion. This isn't your daughter's opinion. This isn't your son's opinion. This is what we're able to measure and show you that you really cannot safely be out there on the roads.
Yeah.
And so we do have a few things that help. The other part of that is having a conversation and letting them decide. And that part's really tricky. So, for example, living by yourself.
Yeah.
Having somebody live by themselves and you say, well, when are you going to move in with your daughter or your son? Never. Well, when would it be safe for you to move in with your daughter and son? When would it no longer be safe for you to be in their home? Well, I don't know. And so then you start saying things like, how about when you leave the garage door open or leave the oven on? And then they start kind of thinking, yeah, if I start doing those things, then I'm going to move inside.
Yeah.
I'm going to move, inside with my child.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So kind of letting them kind of think through what could happen is really helpful. But this isn't like a quick conversation you can have over a snack and be like, great, we got it done, check box. This is a big conversation that you spend time, and it's going to take a couple times.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard several people are kind of at that stage with their parents or grandparents, and they're asking, what they're getting lost, because it's more than just hurting somebody else. They could get lost. They could, every time a silver alert comes on, it's like, that's really scary.
Yes,
it happens to people that we know. So I think giving them the choices that just have all the choices are good answers, but there will be a better answer. Right. So I think that you're absolutely right. Having them be responsible for their decisions.
Yes. And jotting those things down too, so that you can remind them, like, hey, this is what we talked about. That visitor again.
Yeah, bringing a gun next time.
This is what we talked about. We said, hey, when you started leaving the doors unlocked, or hey, you started doing this or that, we were going to say, hey, you've got to move.
Yeah. Well, and it scares them. I think it helped her make different choices and changes. My mom, when things scared her a little bit, and I couldn't scare her. I didn't want to scare her, but I mean, there would be things that she didn't realize she was capable of or not capable of.
Right.
So I think that just involving them in part of the process of their life as much as possible is important.
Yes.
And I think, I don't, it's not on here, but the thing that was so frustrating as a person accompanying her most of the time is when someone would talk to me and not her.
Right.
And I know that's probably tricky for a practitioner either. Hey, get this fly out of here. But anyway, so having them be involved in as much as possible, and then letting them call on you because you don't want to explain all that stuff to everybody.
Right.
And I think that was what was really difficult, because she did share everything with me, and not everyone, because she didn't want everybody to know that she was less than perfect.
Right.
Or less than anything. So I think even when she moved to assisted living, that was her choice. I didn't want to ever push her, because I was that, you can live in my house, you can live in my backyard, I'll build you a house, whatever. And she didn't, of course, want to do that, and which probably would not have been the best idea anyway. But, it did work out to where she finally chose that, because she, like you said earlier, didn't want to burden anybody else.
Right.
And I just thought it would be fun, having people in the same boat as you are and doing that kind of thing. But I guess I would think it's fun. I didn't have to live there, so.
I think it's also a little limiting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we see it as you're going to be around peers. It's going to be a social thing for you, and you've just lost a lot of your social and independence. So maybe this is a good thing. But I think it's limiting, and I think people don't really like change. Most of us don't.
Yeah.
We get pretty good at doing the same thing over and over again.
Sure.
And so I think that is also a change that they have to embark upon.
And change is scary. And I think the older you get, the scarier it is, because the technology, I think, is such a huge.
It's huge.
That's a different dynamic of choices now than there was before, it seems like. So
there is a reason for that. There's a reason for this technology stuff. It's so that we, as healthcare providers, are more accessible.
Sure.
And that makes us, a little bit more competitive, I think. But it's more accessibility. But yes, I have patients without smartphones.
Yeah.
And my staff is saying, hey, would you like to do a virtual visit today?
They're like, what?
I can't see them on their flip phone. This isn't going to work.
Right.
And so they're like, yeah, I just want to be seen. I just want to be heard. I just want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And so we have to navigate that differently. But yes, as people get older, the technology and stuff is so much more advanced. For really not everybody. Some people are killing it.
Well, sure, yeah. Some of them are way better than me. But our experience wasn't so much that way. But it's a great tool, because we did a lot of studies at UT Southwestern, and driving her to Dallas, that's hard on her.
Right.
So that was nice to be able to do that. But I understand it's probably hard to make if it's a difficult diagnosis or something without seeing the person. Probably,
oh, right, yes.
But to fill in with those, that makes it really easy for the person, I think, and especially with the memory problems. I'm getting two schools of thoughts from people. If you bring them out of their environment, are they more confused every time they go back, or is that more? Some are saying it's good to get them out, and some say it's better not to keep changing their scenery.
I can't actually quote a specific study that did this, but I can say when my experience in the ICU, there was something called ICU delirium.
Okay.
And this is when somebody would get sick, and they'd be in the ICU for a few days, and then they would leave a little kooky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never knew what degree of kookiness it is. It's just a little kooky.
Okay.
But it makes a lot of sense because they were in their normal routine at home. And then you go into an environment like the ICU where there's no day and no night.
Right.
You know, you have staff constantly in and out. There's no dinner, lunch, breakfast, none of those things. The TV's not being turned on for their favorite shows. And so they're getting a little off on their time, and it's called ICU delirium.
Okay.
And so it does make a lot of sense that the more we take people out of their comfort zone and their environment, that's their normal environment, they might actually have a little bit more struggling with memory and what's going on.
Okay.
A lot of times people with memory, they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that can actually increase their anxiety, worry, and you can really see a lot of things exacerbate in their memory. And they know this too.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that delirium thing that you're talking about, does that ever involve like seeing things that aren't there and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. People hallucinate with it.
Yeah.
It's very sad. We actually had a really bad case one time, and we had the patient. She was stable enough to be out and about, and she was going to be out and about. So we put her in a chair in the nurse's station, and she sat there and was a nurse for a little while.
That's great. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if she was happy about it, but she was safe.
Right.
And it was one of those, it was better to get her home in her environment, maybe have home health or a nurse aide or somebody come by and stay with her in her environment to get her back than to keep her out of her environment, like at a skilled nursing facility.
Okay. Yeah, we had to bust out of a few of those places. They were not good.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's interesting because I would try to pay attention to our particular situation, but then more than that, you could tell they're just, if they're leaving a lot, they're coming back a lot.
Yes.
It seems like the decline is worse when they're more confused, obviously.
They are, yes.
Okay, so where are we at? We got off track.
So we kind of discussed briefly about like strategies to discussing this topic with your parents, and then the process of transitioning. I just want to go back to that if we got the time.
Yeah, sure.
Whenever I talk to patients about this and they don't really have a preference, I usually tell them this is what the end of life for a patient can look like in the ICU.
Okay.
It's usually a lot of alarms. Family members are pushed out of the room. And then you have me, who's a stranger, and fellow nurses doing CPR. And they're pounding on your chest.
Yeah.
And there's lots of noise, and your family is crying and scared and anxious. And when you were coming to this point in life, let's say 102,
Okay.
and we have a bad heart, we're on a lot of medications, we're having a hard time breathing, is that what you want your end of life to look like? And if it is, that's fine. That is your preference.
Sure.
I'm here to respect that, and I want the family to respect that. But if that is not, let's make it to where your preference can be, can happen for you.
No, I agree completely because there's, if that's not discussed, it can be discussed at a real stressful time.
Right.
You
Yes.
know?
And having that discussion in the hospital is imperative to have it, yes.
Yeah.
But it's usually not the preferred. That we're kind of already finishing the race at that time.
Right.
The race at that time.
Yeah. Well, and I think the way it's delivered to a person is important. We had some great experiences, but we had some not so great experiences.
Right.
And I remember a person came in and said to my daughter, very frankly, she was by herself, and I had already told them this. This is her granddaughter. Don't share with her anything that I'm not being able to tell her first. And she came in the room. She said, "Well, your grandma, you won't be doing crossword puzzles anymore after this." And it was just devastating. My daughter was just crushed. I mean, although we know what's going on, that didn't need to happen like that. So, I think that the delivery of that is very, very important. So just using terms like I'm sitting here listening to you thinking the whole, the transitioning, just the word itself is less scary.
Yeah, less scary.
Because we're all going to do it.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes,
You're
we
right.
all are.
Yeah. So are we on the second page?
I think so.
Okay. You're in charge.
Okay. Thanks.
I shouldn't be in charge of nothing. Okay.
And kind of going back to that, that's the role of a healthcare provider. That's on us. That's nothing to do with family. That's nothing to do with the patient. That is when a healthcare provider probably did not think about what they were going to say.
Yeah.
Their brain might have been someplace. I'm not making an excuse. It's really, really sad when that happens. And I probably have done it a few times as well. And I hate that happened.
Well, you're not a mean person, though.
I try not to.
Yeah, no, you're not a mean person at all.
But that should not have happened. And I notice a lot of people, there's a lot of been change in healthcare in general with COVID and that COVID burnout.
Yeah.
And I noticed that whenever your mom was going through that.
Yeah.
And it's unacceptable, 100% unacceptable, because regardless, that is your mom.
Right.
That is somebody's
mom. Yeah.
Yeah. That
You're
is
right.
somebody very important. So I am sorry that happened.
Well, thank you. But it is understandable at the same time. It just doesn't feel very good when it happens,
Right.
But I
No.
mean, it's sad because we put our care staff on such a pedestal.
Right,
They're
yes.
the be all end all. You are her hope. And
Right,
so
yeah.
it's probably difficult it's probably some unrealistic, I know
An
personally I have some
expectation,
unrealistic
maybe,
expectation. Yeah.
But still, kindness isn't an
Yeah, it
unrealistic
doesn't cost-
expectation at all.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm glad you were able to witness some of that. But anyway, yes. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So you're still in
let's see
charge.
here. So we kind of talked about the driving a little bit. Easier not to demand these things to happen, kind of put it in their decision making, like what is it going to look like? When will you move out of the house? What are some things that could happen potentially harmful? And then do you see that would be beneficial for you to have a safer environment? And usually they're like, yes. I love whenever they go, I'll have the button around my neck.
Oh,
And I'm
gosh,
like,
I
but
know.
are you going to wear it?
Exactly. Yeah, they're not going to wear it. They're not going to charge it.
No.
They're not going to remember to put it back on or push it if they need to.
Right,
Or
right.
and it may not even work if they do push it. So,
Exactly. That's not my favorite one, but
No.
It's a little bit at a time. Like
Yeah.
you're just kind of spoon feeding them and just getting a little bit back, and that's okay.
Yeah.
The next one is family dynamics, and
Ooh, that can be
this
tough.
this one is tough. This one is really tough. In my experience, this family dynamics, you can try to prepare for it all you want.
Yeah.
But there's always a surprise. What do they say? Like, families are the worst at weddings and funerals?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
If it is at all possible, getting people involved that are very significant to that person, whether it be kids, spouse, family members like sisters and brothers, I don't know, involved with this conversation is the most helpful, because you can always say, but remember, this is what they wanted.
Right.
Obviously, having a medical power of attorney, this is a legal person that is holding accountable your medical wishes. Some people don't want to be intubated. Some people don't want a feeding tube. And so having a medical power of attorney can actually speak on your behalf when those times come where you cannot is really important. And they usually have the say-so after everything is said and done.
Yeah.
But having these conversations with family present can be very difficult, but really beneficial in the long run. And hopefully diffuse any confrontation or fights that may occur, but not always.
Right.
Not always.
Yeah.
I often found in the ICU that the most estranged relationships, like a son that hasn't been in contact with his mom for years, was the most exaggerated or exacerbated by the passing, sobbing. And so that kind of takes a play of it too.
Right.
When we're talking to our loved ones, my mom or dad, I'm an only child, so really it's just
that explains
me.
a lot.
I'm
You
the
didn't have to
best.
share, did you? Yeah, that's right.
But that being said, if I had a brother that did not speak to our parents, and then all of a sudden he shows up and mom's passing away from something, he's probably not going to be on the same page as the rest of the family. And so really trying to incorporate him the best we can to getting on that same page, honestly, as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
And that's something to be just mindful of, really.
Yeah.
And kind of to expect. I mean, families aren't perfect.
Yeah.
That's why we're all blood related.
Yeah. Well,
And some marriage, I guess.
And yeah, that's true. That's true. Then you get a whole note. Who knows what you get?
That's right.
Yes, that's a tough spot to be in as having been one. I remember calling her attorney, and because I was getting a lot of criticism, and I'm like, "Are you sure I'm the person for this job?" He's like, "I'm telling you, you're the person for this job." You even,
Yes.
So that was really important to me to have that support, because when that's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's I don't want to say it's a burden, but it's a heavy, heavy, heavy cross to bear, right?
Yeah.
And whenever I would tell you that, I could see that there's self-doubt, because again, we're making a decision on the behalf of somebody else.
Right.
And it's your mom, it's your dad, it's your loved one. You don't want them to leave, but you also want to uphold their wishes and make them as happy, comfortable, whatever as possible.
Yeah.
And so having that family rift and having that security within yourself, knowing that that's what that person wanted is the best thing you can do. And I think I kept telling you, you're her daughter. You know your mother.
Right.
I don't know her as well as you do. Her best friends don't know her as well as you do.
Right.
Her sisters don't know her as well as you do.
Yeah.
You're her daughter.
Right.
Just as your daughter probably knows you the best.
Right.
Right. And so I hope that there's more people out there that can support the caregivers. And that's kind of something else I put in there just briefly about caregiver support. But having that reassurance from others and also yourself is really helpful.
Yes, it's very helpful because, you're tired and you're
tired.
You get so, it's just like if someone tells you you're ugly long enough, you'll start to believe it. If someone starts to doubt you, you start to doubt yourself. And so that was, I'm glad that some of those things are in place. So I think it's even more important for families to have those things in place when you are thinking correctly and when you are not affected by others, things like that. So, and then the caregiver support, that's easier said than done.
It is easier said than done. So there's a lot of things that you experience, and you know this more than I, but what I've read in studies, you experience depression, burden, sometimes resentment, frustration, exhaustion, and these are all normal things. And we don't talk about them because they're ugly or they're uncomfortable, or you feel like somebody's going to go, well, shame on you, or you should not speak those things. And so we don't share them with each other. And actually, they found that in support groups for this, caregivers themselves did find it very helpful. Now, it's not going to eliminate the depression, the burden, the resentment. It won't eliminate it, but it can lessen it.
And you don't feel alone.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's pretty much a
very lonely.
Isolated island, to be on sometimes. So I think that, it doesn't seem like, though, I don't know if more counties have more or less support than others, but I personally haven't found just a whole lot of resources for that. I know that the hospice place where Mother was, they have a grief group, but I never, they don't know when it starts or, that kind of thing. So, so that is very important to, because, there's a lot of things that are going to be neglected while you are doing that.
There is, yes. And so they label one of these interventions as respite care, right? Okay. So that is somebody stepping in for the caregiver, either to take care of the person themselves or to take over something the caregiver needs to have done, like oil changes, right? Yeah. Something to take off the plate.
Right.
That is helpful. But
people don't know about it.
That's right. That's right.
I didn't know about it. Yeah. I learned, and I don't know if this is correct, but if a person is in hospice or having hospice care, which does not mean the end of life, which is a whole nother show.
That's right. Yes.
We're all really at the end of life, but if they were on a hospice care, that they had that week a month available through Medicare or something. That would have been
counseling
huge.
And
that would be huge for a person or a family. And you know what? I'm sure she was tired of me being up in her grill all the time too.
You
but
never know.
You never know. But it's that just finding someone that you can trust that gets the whole.
That's right.
Picture of what you're dealing with. And I think I found that the respite care I was aware of after the fact seemed very qualified to do that job.
Yes.
So
okay.
What about like group homes and things like that?
So group homes for the elderly, or like group sessions to help with?
Like for the elderly, I guess. Well, that's really going to get into more of the hospice, the choices you have, I guess.
Right. So there's a lot of choices out there. Group homes aren't specifically for elderly, but the nursing homes, skilled facilities, assisted living, those things are. And within those, there are resources for both the families and the patient themselves. My best friend from college, she actually is the PR person, I guess, director of a memory care center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big job.
It is a big job.
Yeah.
She actually gave me my first little bit of advice on stuffed animals. And so I don't know what it is about a stuffed animal, but whenever you have an elderly person that is going through that ICU delirium, this is where I used it, or actually having signs of dementia that's worsening and gets that scared, safety, anxiety, you give them a stuffed animal and they comfort it and they calm down. So I spent so much money at that silly gift shop at the hospital. I'm like, you get a baby and you get a baby.
That's exactly right. Well, that's awesome though, because I wouldn't think of that. But I have a friend who's has brain cancer for the second time, and she's she's about 62 or so, and she's got her husband got her the little pillow that has enough trinkets and things on there for her to stay occupied.
Yes.
And because she's not mentally, she's in another place, So I thought that was interesting, and I like that.
Yes.
I didn't think about giving them something, but they got to take care of it. It takes their mind off.
That's right. It takes their mind off, and they're very, protective over it, and they do kind of calm down a little bit. So
the dogs work too.
Yes,
Dogs work for blood pressure. I took my dog's name is Dolly Parton, which I was going to bring her tonight. Yeah, but she was the one. My mother, she said she didn't like her, but she really did like her. So when her blood pressure was really up, I would take her over there, and it really within like 10 minutes, blood pressure's down, and she's acting like she likes the dog, and it's all good. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I found is whenever patients do transition into that kind of care facility, they have a lot more resources that people are aware of to help both the caregiver and the patient.
Right.
But other than that, I don't know of any other kind of group things that are specific to.
Maybe we need to start some.
I know, right?
We need to do a lot of things.
I've actually toyed with the idea of doing like a community board at the clinic where I work, and kind of trialing it. I don't know if my company will let me do it, but putting things on there for the elderly to get together, maybe enjoy things that they'd like to do, cross-stitching or something, and having groups, and just kind of being able to pull off a phone number and say, okay, I want to see what this is all about, because there's just not those resources out there.
There really isn't. Well, I'll be happy to offer my place in Burleson. We need to do that.
Wonderful.
I think that's huge for everybody involved, and there's a lot of things you can do together as the caretaker and the person.
Yes.
I know we did a lot more things together because I just didn't want her to feel left out of anything, for one thing. But what'd you say before that? That maybe I forgot what I was going to say. This happens all the time. I'm a little bit maybe in the delirium stage myself.
No. We were talking about respite care and the other things that are available for caregivers and for the patients.
Right. So so they need support of someone who's really been there, because you can't really. I don't think I could have imagined. I might can empathize with you, but I wouldn't really have that. But I haven't had that experience. I can't quite imagine what it was like.
Right.
Right. So I think having just sharing that with someone else who's been through it is probably pretty.
And I think, I've brought this up with a few patients. I see patients that are of age where their parents are going through something like this, or dementia. That's a big one. Yeah. And so they do share with me, and I feel like they just have this guilt or burden that isn't really necessary, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
And they feel like they go into this saying, I've got to give it 100% because my mom loved me so much, or my dad loved me so much. I have to give it 100%.
Right.
And they're falling short when that really isn't the expectation. Nobody set that expectation. I don't know who set that expectation, because they need to be corrected.
Yes.
But that is an expectation, but we don't really talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually when you're in the middle of it, it's too late to talk about it,
right?
Or you just got to keep going.
You just keep going. You almost kind of put on your survival hat, and like, this is what we're doing.
Yes, I think that's very true. So, and I like the fact that the people themselves, they can support each other, which is what I thought would really happen where mom lived, and they did to a degree.
Right.
But usually it seemed like there was a kind of a pattern when people would first come in, they'd be mad about it, and because I was there all the time, and they would tell me that their kids just dropped them off and sold their house, and just, terrible things like that. And so I'm thinking, well, everybody's at different points here. Maybe they can help build each other up. And to a degree they did, but it's funny because to hear one of them talking about the other one, how she can't hear and she don't know what's going on and she don't remember, so there was at least there was some humor in the deal, which I think is everyone's saving grace. Have a little humor in the deal, but
I think it also depends on where the facility is, because my girlfriend, going back to my best friend, she coordinated a lot of these outings and family days, and so these people really did get to come together on a positive note. I can't imagine actually having them in my reality, because this is their reality. My kids dropped me off and sold my house and got rid of my dog.
Right.
Like, can you imagine?
No.
And so they're not in a positive place.
Right.
And so kind of getting through that would be good. But I think when you get to interview these places, really having these, like, what do you have available as resources for me? What do you have available as resources for my loved one? What do you have available for getting people involved instead of just staying in their room? What kind of services come out here for physical therapy or dog? They have dog therapy.
Yeah, they had llamas too one day. Yeah, but that's so important, because I guarantee you there's a lot of questions we did not ask. And there was lots of things thrown at you at that point. You know,
Sure.
we got a doctor 24/7, we got a nurse 24/7. And then the reality is there's no doctor, and there's a nurse on call.
Right.
But she lives in, Dallas. So is that really that good of a? So I think it's very important to ask all those questions when you start, and no question is stupid because.
Right.
I cease to be amazed.
Yes.
On a timely, yeah. So, okay. So, as far as, and I didn't realize. I know you were great with the older people, but I did not know that was more your focus
It is my
until I read
focus,
your
yes.
stuff. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome, and I think there should be more people that do that.
There is another at the clinic. There's one other adult gerontology nurse practitioner. She actually was one of my precepting students, so
Okay.
I precepted her for a while. But she loves that one-on-one. It's enriching for us as well
Yeah.
because we want to hear the stories and we
Right.
want to see the joy, and it's just something that you get to share, even if
Yeah.
it's just for 15 minutes. It's something,
Right.
And so we really do enjoy it. I have patients that enjoy reading and enjoy doing. And we try to keep them as independent as possible. So if you can do home health or home PT or
Yeah.
home occupational therapy, anything we can do inside the home, because again, they're limited on driving and whatnot, we try to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's super important. And, unfortunately, we had to experience we did not experience hospice in her facility, but we did the home health and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I remember one of the home health nurses, Teresa, was just great. But when she was put on her services for the second or third time, she sat down with us and she was talking and she said, I can't put you on my services. I was like, why? Well, you're the best. And she said, you need more than a home health,
right.
and that was a tough pill for her to swallow because she was like, I am fine. And there were days that she was fine, but she didn't remember the days that she wasn't fine. Or,
Right.
Getting home from the hospital 30 minutes ago going, where did I get this bruise?
Right.
And so that's really, I just learned to answer the question as many times as she wanted to ask it. And they don't want to feel stupid,
Right.
and
No,
you
they
don't want them to
don't.
feel that way. So, I think that just the best thing is to be kind to someone who's struggling like that, because everything in the world's changing,
That's right.
and they have no control.
Right. But you gave that a lot of grace, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of going back to that a little bit, people do get frustrated. I mean, it's natural.
Right.
Maybe you got cut off on the highway and maybe something happened bad at work, or maybe your kid went and spent way too much money and you're like, what were they thinking? And then now you're dealing with the fifth in a row question of,
Yeah.
what did you do last night?
Right. Do you want a Coke?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want a Coke?
Uh-huh.
And you answer it. There is no way to handle that. Everybody's going to handle it their own way. And some days it's going to be great. And some days you're going to fail. You're going to
Yeah.
fail miserably
Yeah.
and just feel really bad. You're going to internalize more guilt than probably it needs
Yeah.
to be.
Right.
But really, I tell a lot of patients and their family members, if you don't have the patience to pick up that phone and hear the same question of, do you want a Coke,
Right.
5 times, please don't call.
Yeah.
Because they will remember, that individual will remember their hurt feelings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're not going to remember why,
Yeah.
but they're going to remember the hurt that they felt for that. So if you don't have it that day,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. You
Right.
don't have it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it may take everything you have.
It takes everything you have sometime. Don't call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't, yeah. And hopefully I've heard a few people go, oh, well, I feel like I need to. Like, I
Yeah.
need to be there every waking moment that I can.
Mm-hmm.
But we want you at your best.
Yeah. It's hard to be there.
It's hard to be at your best all the time.
It really is, and it's not possible.
No, it's not.
I know of there's Mr. Allard. So hello, Mr. Allard. I was his favorite student in high school.
I love that.
And Mr. Allard has Mr. Allard's Neighborhood, who he produces out of this studio 3 times a week. Taylor, 4 times a week.
That's cool. That's very
Anyway,
cool.
so yeah,
He's at
Brad.
2 or 3 right now.
Huh? 2?
2 or 3 right now.
Right now. And in fact, Mr. Allard was on our show not too long ago because his father's has got dementia.
Oh.
And so he's in Oklahoma. And of course, Oklahoma. I don't know, one of the two, he'll tell me. And it's just difficult for him to be there. But
Right.
luckily, he's got a sister and they have a great relationship. So that's a really, that's a wonderful resource to have if your parents are not right here. So,
Right, right.
I told my daughter, I said, move as far away as you can from me when you get married, Just get it together and then come back. So, that's not always, at this point, I may be completely nuts. So, but yeah, I think that the caregiver support is the thing that's talked about so much, and there's not really anything there. So maybe we can, I will cheer
Right,
for you as you
right.
put that together.
Well, thanks. Yeah,
You're welcome.
There are a few things that they are rolling out now
Okay.
through the computer technology and whatnot that you can kind of work through yourself at your own pace and own time.
Okay.
It's not there with other people, so you're not getting to bounce like ideas off.
Okay.
You know, one of them that is very commonly, I can't get mom or dad to eat.
Yeah.
I can't get them to eat. And I'm like, what do you give them? Chicken and green beans. I'm like, well, I don't want to eat that either.
They want Bluebell and Coke.
That's exactly right.
Give it to them.
Please give them the Bluebell and Coke. And if you feel bad about it, put some protein drink in the melted ice cream and make it a milkshake.
That was a great day for my mother when you told her that. She was like, what? She is definitely my favorite. Like, I know.
Yes, please, just get those calories in. But,
right.
They do offer online things for people that are caregivers. But according to studies, they really are beneficial. I just don't understand how.
Yeah.
I mean, I like having the reassurance that somebody else is, please forgive me, suffering the way I'm suffering.
Exactly. Well, misery loves company.
That's
you know?
right. Yeah.
I mean, we're still human at the end of the day. So, no, I think that's very important. And I do think there's a lot of value in just knowing somebody else is going through what you're going through, and that you don't have to explain yourself.
Right.
Because it's very difficult to explain.
It is.
You know,
it is difficult.
How are you feeling is a whole big, I mean,
and you'll probably never experience it again.
Yeah.
And so you can't learn from your mistakes.
Right.
This
exactly.
is it.
I can't do this one over. No, that's actually true. So, okay. Well, we're going to follow you, and we're going to make sure that we see the fruits of your labor. Because I think that if anybody can do it, you can do it.
I probably could.
And I was telling some people, are you taking new patients?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I figured they would comment on here saying, hey, tell her to give me an appointment. So I was like, you got to get a new patient appointment. But do you want to tell people how they can get a hold of you?
Oh, sure. So I work for THPG.
Okay.
It is Texas Health Resources, but Texas Health Physicians Group.
Okay.
So that's the outpatient setting clinic. Mm-hmm. And I work for an internal medicine doctor. And so this is... I always joke and say we're the people that are looking for the zebra, right? Yeah. So you come in with these many symptoms, and we're going to like pick through each symptom. That's what internal medicine kind of does. It kind of dives in a little deeper. Sometimes people don't like me being that aggressive, and I understand. It's not my money. But that's so we work at a practice that's open Monday through Friday. We have an on-call specialist or an on-call provider. It's me next week.
Okay.
And, you know, it's kind of funny. Everybody, like, gets a little irked about it. I do, too. But then whenever I know it's one of my patients, like, what are you doing?
Right.
Tell me about it.
Right, of course.
But, yes, you can call Texas Health Adult Medicine. It's off of, it's 801 West Cannon in Fort Worth. And we see people 17 to 118.
Okay. So no pediatrics.
No pediatrics, please.
So 118. So I love that. Yeah. I hope that I don't make it that long, because I'm pretty sure I won't be in any kind of shape.
I'm going to hurt real bad.
Yeah, no
Every
kidding.
bone and joint in my body is going to hurt.
I drink now. I can imagine what that would be like. So, but anyway, well, I am so excited that you came to be with us today.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
If you think of any resources that you would like to list later on, we can go through that, because this is a series. We'll be doing, different things. So, are you? I'm curious if, from your position, you're a proponent of hospice care?
I am. I love hospice.
I think that's so misunderstood.
It's very misunderstood. Yeah. So when we look at the practice of medicine, we're always looking at quantity of life. We're trying to get you to that 118 or plus.
Right.
But when we switch to hospice care, we're looking at quality.
Okay.
And I like kind of talking to the patients about this, because sometimes mom or dad, they don't want to. Here's a great example. Aspiration pneumonia. Can't swallow anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe they just lost the ability. Maybe they had a stroke. Maybe they were intubated for too long at a hospital, but they cannot swallow. Well, they really like drinking water.
Yeah.
And they like eating, and they like having that time with their families that are food related. Sure. Well, they can't.
Yeah.
Because they can't swallow. That's when we kind of start talking about, what does mom, dad, loved one want?
Right.
And what do they want their life to look like?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned at the very beginning, none of us are going to make it out of this life alive. Right. And so hospice care looks at quality of life and what that looks like. So dad wants to drink a milkshake. He can drink a milkshake. Okay. We're going to try to thicken it for him.
Sure.
We are probably still going to get him speech therapy, right? To help him swallow as much as he can. We're going to put oxygen on him if he aspirates. We're going to take him to the hospital and try to treat the pneumonia. Yeah. But we're not going to tell him no.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think something I maybe understand is that when you've got a disease or a condition that's not curable, but treatable. That if you're not seeking more, you're not doing testing and you're not doing all those discovery deals, where you kind of know we've got the heart issues and we've got this and we've got this, and you've got those covered, then there's no need to continue to put the person through the testing and the MRIs and all the things.
Yes.
I remember some of the tests that they did at the end. I was like, what in the world is happening right now?
It was almost like they needed somebody to say, okay, this is enough. We need to rethink what our end goal is going to be.
Well, you would think, but they didn't communicate with each other, unfortunately.
That's right.
So, and that's
typically the practice of medicine is, from my understanding, is quantity.
Yeah.
And I remember working with a few doctors in the ICU, and I'm like, what are we doing here? And he's like, we're playing the game. And I'm like, I don't know if I like this game.
Right.
But we're going to code the patient and tell the family members or tell us to stop or until the patient passes away. And that's just kind of how medicine is sometimes looked at.
And that's why it's so important to talk about these things and get them taken care of before it's too late to make those choices, because that's got to be, you don't know, but it's devastating to watch for sure.
It is. It's very devastating. I don't think I would want to see any of my loved ones go through that.
No.
And I know that the people that are doing that, we're trying to save their life, right? And we're doing our best of everything that we can, but it's painful, I'm sure. It doesn't look pretty.
No.
I would want to be there holding my mom's hand and talking to her. I don't want somebody else around and me being pushed off to the side.
Right.
But having these conversations, even hospice conversations, and some people tell me, no, thank you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really glad that you feel that way, and we'll talk about it maybe at another time. I'll let you bring it up maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think once you put the bug in their ear and they just, they'll do a little research, then they kind of come around. But I just find it just seems like, in the people I've spoken with, by the time they reach hospice, it's too late, and they wish that they would have done it sooner. And so that's my point, is just, yes, it's unpleasant to discuss, but do you want them to be able to be a part of their decisions or not? Do you want to be a part of your decisions? Right. I do. It's certainly changed our trajectory of things that we're doing, because I have an only child, and she's going to want to take care of me, so I want to get it all in order. But yeah, we could talk about this stuff all day, so maybe we will do this again in the future. And if you're looking for a great primary care person, that would be her. So anyway, you're going to get some calls tomorrow. Very good. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you again soon.
Okay. I love it.
Thanks for watching.